supposed to, or you should be, if you're a real man, dominant, in control, knowledgeable, confident, have a big dick, be able to last a certain amount of time, give your partner 50 million orgasms, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sex, Law, and Energy. This is MJ, and of course, today I have another amazing guest for you guys. And today is more, I know always I'm all about females, but today I'm all about males. So I'm so lucky to have you, Cam. Did I say right? Your name?
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, Cam to be here because actually, guys, he's a male sex coach, which I'm so excited to have this conversation because, we know we have to talk about the other gender. So here we are. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I was just saying to you offline that I've been quite sick for the last 2 weeks, so it's nice to be feeling better, and I'm excited to be speaking to you after we had to reschedule. So thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pleasure to have you here. So let's start from the beginning. What is the reason why you become a sex coach, actually, a male sex coach, if you can talk about that?
Essentially, I, as a younger guy, was really struggling with my own sexuality and masculinity. And by that, I mean, I was really insecure. I was really quite anxious. I was really worried about how other men and, young women were perceiving me during my teenage years. I felt, a lot of anxiety about that. And so to compensate for that, I drank quite a lot. One of the things here in Australia, at least, that shows that you're more of a man is how much alcohol you can drink. So I drank quite a lot of alcohol, and then went over to America to study at university over there, and had a bit of a reputation as the Australian who could drink quite a lot of alcohol. And that was the way that I, fit in, essentially. And, the way that I got praise from my peers. And that was not healthy for me. Obviously, it's not helpful to drink that much alcohol. And there's a period of about 5 years during my adolescence where I didn't have one sexual experience sober. Every sexual experience that I had was under the influence. And so that contributed to, obviously, some issues with regards to sexual experiences. I was never really able to fully connect with the women that I was being sexual with because I was always drinking when being sexual. I experienced, alcohol-induced impotence, so just drinking too much to the point where my dick didn't work, right? Couldn't get an erection. And then because I was so anxious and so highly concerned about my sexual performance, even if I was able to get an erection and maybe I hadn't drunk so much that particular time, I would usually ejaculate quite quickly. So I was really struggling with sexual dysfunction, which I don't like. I don't like the term sexual dysfunction, but I was struggling with ejaculating quickly and having erection difficulties. And I was also watching pornography a lot at that age of my life as well, and had a really poor relationship with porn. And thankfully, right, to sum this all up, I was able to do a lot of work with a therapist. I was able to do a lot of work with some other modalities like yoga and massage, and then got into sacred sexuality, tantra, and breath work and meditation, and all these really beautiful methodologies for healing and for personal growth, and radically changed the way that I related to myself, the way that I thought about my body. I learned much more about my body. I felt more confident in my masculinity. I didn't really give a shit what other people thought about me anymore. And so I was able to be more authentic and more genuine. Developed my communication skills through therapy as well. So I was able to actually speak to the young women that I was being sexual with. I was able to actually have conversations about the sex that we wanted to have, pleasure, desire, things like that. And so I was able to really transform the way that I related to men, the way that I related to women, the sex that I was having. And I saw the profound impact that had on my life. And so I thought, well, I'm really interested in psychology. I want to get into clinical practice. What about if I specialize in sexuality, and specifically, what if I specialize in male sexuality? So started talking a bit more about it, and people seemed to resonate with it. And men in particular needed some support. They still need some support around this, and they'll probably always need some support around this. So just stepped into that line of work and have been doing it for the last 10 years. That's my life story in a nutshell.
Wow. That was a very interesting story. And actually, there is a few points I want to get dug a little bit deeper. First of all, is I'm really appreciate your honesty and transparency in regards of all the issues, because you have to be, you were honest with yourself, understanding I'm struggling with this, and what was the problem. You were hiding things like drinking too much, replacing superficial stimulus instead of getting a real connection. So for me, that's fascinating, because I feel like there is a lot of fear in regards of male, and then the masculinity as well. You even mentioned it now. You said, now I feel more like I own more my masculinity when I was able to go through all these therapies and different sessions where they're helping me to improve myself. But right now we are living in a society, and specifically me, I'm not from Australia. I can see the main difference that how men have that projection of being strong, don't be too much, or like don't feel emotion, don't think too much, don't feel it in your body. This connection is normalized. So this is the point I want to talk about you. How would you say, or how would you encourage someone to, they know, because I know they might think taking Camagra is a normal thing, and having 3 drinks before having intimacy is normal. But deep inside them, they know that is not okay. What would be your encouragement advice to give it to them to say, yeah, just be a man, like a real one, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. So I like to use a concept called the act like a man box, which is this idea that there are these unwritten but kind of acknowledged rules that men feel like they need to adhere to in order to, quote, be a real man, right? And oftentimes, as you pointed out, MJ, those here in Australia at least are be strong, don't cry, don't show your emotions, don't be vulnerable, be successful, be confident, right? Very stereotypical in that sense, right? And people can probably think about some other stereotypes as well. And so the way that I start to then talk about this then is like, well, if these are these unwritten set of rules that men feel like they have to adhere to, then if you don't adhere to those, or if you don't do something that's considered manly, what typically happens? And usually a lot of guys are able to acknowledge and articulate that, yeah, you kind of get bullied and ostracized and otherized and told that you're weak or a pussy, or, they'll use the term gay disparagingly. And so it's like, all right, well, what you're identifying there is that there is a idea about masculinity which is placing pressure on you to perform and to act a certain way, and that is going to be creating anxiety because it's almost impossible to live up to this idealized version of what it means to be a man. And that's also true in the bedroom, right? So not only are these narratives around masculinity very true in terms of how you present yourself in general, but there's also what we might call the sexual man box, which is like, what does it mean to be a man sexually? And usually, again, a lot of guys are able to identify that you're supposed to, or you should be, if you're a real man, dominant, in control, knowledgeable, confident, have a big dick, be able to last a certain amount of time, give your partner 50 million orgasms, right? All these, and when I do conversations with men around pornography, we typically can identify that a lot of that man box idea of what it means to be a sexual man is exemplified in porn, right? There's no issues in porn. It's all big penises. These guys, last 45 minutes. That's the sexual man box is very much seen in a lot of mainstream pornography. And again, that creates a lot of anxiety, it creates a lot of tension, and it creates a lot of expectation about this is what it means to be a man in the bedroom. And a lot of guys, again, feel pressure to perform. They feel like there's this way that they should be, and if they don't, then they're less than. So to begin with, like, it's understanding that idea and that concept, and then giving men the tools to like unpack that for themselves. So I do a lot of one-on-one work, but I also do group work, and I also speak to guys, whoever will listen to me really, MJ, about like, it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to subscribe to these particular ways of thinking about masculinity. You can be much more playful, you can be much more sensual, you can be much more erotic, and when you start to do that, you typically will have better sexual experiences, but also you feel better in your body. Like, feeling anxious and worried about what you look like and how you perform and what people are thinking about you requires a lot of energy, requires a lot of mental load, I suppose. And so to be able to let go of that and step more into like, does this feel good for me? Is this enjoyable? Is my partner having a good time? Are we smiling? Are we laughing? So rather than focusing on what it looks like and what you're trying to do to prove that you're being a man in those moments, can you focus instead on, what does it feel like? Is it enjoyable? Are you having fun, right? Does it feel good for you? Are you laughing alongside your partner? Can you measure success in terms of intimacy and connection and pleasure, rather than how many orgasms you had, how long you lasted, and how big your dick is, right? So you shift from focusing on performance to focusing on pleasure. And that shift there is not an easy one. I'll grant you that. Like, it takes a little while to really unpack and to move away from. But that's the general direction that I try to shift guys in. Is like, how can you focus on those other things of sexual experiences rather than the aesthetics of it? How can you focus on the feelings that it invokes in you and your partner?
Yeah. Absolutely, like focusing on the connection and the intimacy instead of the performance. Because unfortunately, as you mentioned, porn is the only like education we might have, even though there is an ethical porn as well. But people don't look at it. People go into the commercial, and the commercial is just performance. So starting from that point and understanding that it's like a show. It's like another TV show we watch, and then it's entertainment, but it's not a reflection of who we are and how we deal with the relationships as well. So it's very important when you say focusing intimacy, in connection, in pleasure, in feeling what is happening, how I'm feeling with the other person, and how I'm engaging in that moment, instead of like, have you come? Have you come?
Yes.
I'm coming. I'm not coming. Because, as you said, is you shift into a new mindset, and that takes sometimes to develop as well. What about the common problems? You mentioned like the functional erection, or like having a background like normalizing, suppressing just too much masturbation and too much porn. They might feel like, actually, I don't feel anything and I'm doing everything. How will you approach in that direction?
To speak to that point just before, I've changed the name of it, but I had a course for men called Outperform a Porn Star. And the idea behind it was to leverage the way that a lot of men think about pornography, which is, they idolize it, right? They typically think that what they see in porn is what good sex looks like, and that's what they should aspire to. And we know that obviously that's fallacious, it's incorrect. But the idea behind Outperform a Porn Star was that if you could actually have genuine, authentic, connected, highly pleasurable, sex with your partner that was enjoyable, that made you laugh, that made you feel intimate and erotic, then you would be outperforming any porn star, right? Because the sex that they have on screen is actually not very pleasurable. It's actually not very enjoyable for those people involved. And I had a whole bunch of interviews with porn stars that I would put in there and use their quotes about like how much they didn't actually enjoy the sex they were having on screen, and how much it was performance and not actually that enjoyable for them. And so, the idea was, how can we take that idea of like seeing what we see on screen and being better than it? Because a lot of guys, again, have this kind of competitive performance-based mindset when it comes to sex. And I wanted to try to leverage that a little bit when it comes to reframing the way that they think, rather than just trying to tell them, hey, it's really important to move away from this performance mindset. I thought, how can we leverage that mindset a little bit and shift them in a positive direction? So I appreciate you mentioning, pornography. The second half of that question that you asked me was, a lot of men do conditioning, right? They condition themselves to experience pleasure through the way that they masturbate, through the way that they watch pornography. And look, I'm not anti-masturbation. I'm not anti-porn. I still encourage guys to experiment with their self-pleasure practice. I still encourage guys to experiment with the sexually explicit material that they engage with. But the underlying principle is variety and experimentation and exploration. It isn't routine, right? Because a lot of guys, they're masturbating and watching porn in the same way that they did when they were teenagers, right? When they first learned about masturbation and pornography. And if you do that over and over and over again and don't change the way that you're exploring your body, it's very easy to create conditioning and patterns in your body around your erotic pathways. And so what that typically ends up happening is, I speak to a lot of men about the way they masturbate, and usually they're sitting down, or they're lying down, or they're stagnant, they're stationary. There's a lot of tension in their bodies, and they're not breathing very well, and they're not moving their bodies, right? They just kind of like moving their arm up and down. Maybe one hand is on the computer screen and one hand's on their phone as well. Like, it's very disconnected, right? The self-pleasure that they're experiencing. And that translates into the sex that they have, right? They go from creating this conditioning about their pleasure and their erotic pathways from masturbation, and then they just transpose that onto the way that they approach sex with a partner. They usually will go straight for penetration. Usually the penetration they have is very friction oriented. It's very fast. It's very rigorous. The way that they think about sex is like it has to finish when there's an ejaculation, which is like the money shot in pornography, right? Like, there's a lot of scripts that they get about what sex looks like from porn. And so, I give guys the prompt to stand up, to move their body. If they're going to watch porn, put the porn up on a screen, put headphones in, create new pathways of pleasure in your body, like breathe, open up, move around, use lube when you're self-pleasuring, and touch other parts of your body. Don't just focus solely on your genitals. Just like really broaden the way that they experience and explore pleasure themselves, so that then they've got an opportunity to do that with a partner, right? Like get curious about their bodies and then extend that curiosity to their partner's bodies. And that comes with obviously developing the skills to communicate, to ask questions, to check in, to assert boundaries, things like that as well. So it isn't just a purely physical practice. There's a relational practice as well. It's a skills-based opportunity to learn how to talk. But yeah, I'm not like, I know there's some men's coaches that are like, don't masturbate, it's bad for you. Don't watch porn, it's bad for you. And I don't really think that's very helpful. I think what a helpful message is to guys is like, hey, it's okay to explore your body. In fact, there's benefits in doing that, and here's some ways that you can do that. I think that non-shaming, non-judgmental approach is much more conducive for actual growth in terms of your sexuality and your sexual experiences.
I totally agree with you in that point. I think that people need to explore themselves in different ways to understand what they like. Creating patterns and conditioning your mind is so common. You just mentioned, even for women, they happen the same thing. They don't know how to masturbate, and they just go in the same movement and the same pattern. It's like, I am not able to connect. And it's like, come back to the basics, which is like breathing. And you even mentioned it. Breathing is the most important thing. Is the only very basic, very standard action that is going to help you to be in the present moment, connected with your body, and just maybe like surrender into this moment, maybe just by yourself, maybe with your partner or who you are going to be intimate with. I think it's so important to slow down for men or for women. Yeah, unfortunately, the money shot in porn is what people think, is what they need to reach. And actually, when you just put aside what you have to reach, and you're more focusing in how I'm gonna navigate into these waves. Like in Tantra, we talk about the waves of pleasure. How you navigate into this layer and the waves of pleasure, you will discover more about yourself than just try to go on the go like it's a sprint, and then I just want to go into you're never going to know what really happened. Like you're going to get lost in literally on the way. So it's very interesting. I have another question actually.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please.
Yeah. I've been hearing quite a lot, men and women, because men, they feel a little bit left behind sometimes when women want to incorporate toys into during intimacy, because they feel like we are not enough. Why do I have to do this? And I wanted to hear your point of view about this specific topic, because it's very common. I was reading about this. Women are the one who initiate, because for men, they're more basic in terms of like the mindset and having intimacy. So women, they're like open-minded and explore to bring new ideas. Maybe because we are into feminine energy, we are able to explore and let our imagination go. But some men, they feel scared. They're like, no, it's not enough with my penis. It's not good for you. What is missing? So I wanted to hear your opinion about it.
Yeah, I actually used to be an ambassador for a sex toy company here in Australia, so I'm very familiar with sex toys. And actually, in our relationship, my wife and I's relationship, we were the opposite. I was the one that introduced a lot of the sex toys into the relationship, and since then we found the ones that we like and the ones that we have as favorites and the ones that we experiment with, and we were like, that's pretty shit. We don't really like that one. So I can speak to a little bit of this, but I've never really had that lived experience of feeling afraid of sex toys. It's always been something that I felt personally quite comfortable with. But one of the things that I will say is, prior to introducing anything external, right, one of the things that has to happen first is decentering the penis, right? You mentioned before that a lot of guys are afraid that they're not enough because they can't provide the amount of pleasure that their partner is looking for purely from just their penis, right? And I kind of think about this in two different ways. The first is, and what I'll say to guys is that they aren't just their penis, right? Like you aren't just your however many inches you've got in your trousers, right? Like you are effectively one big penis, right? I like to say to guys, you're one huge dick. And the idea is behind that is like, firstly, you're able to experience pleasure all over your body, right? You don't just experience pleasure just in your genitals. And also, when you have sex with your partner, you aren't just using your penis, you're using your whole body, right? So how can you incorporate everything, all of you, into a sexual experience with your partner? That's the first thing. The second thing is like, when it comes to sex, the way that a lot of people define it is penis in vagina, right? It's very penetration oriented, it's very intercourse oriented. So how do you move away from that? Not necessarily move away from it, but how do you broaden the way that you think about sex, right? And so how do you go, okay, sure, sex is penis in vagina, and also it incorporates fingers and your mouth and, like I said, the rest of your body. Other things that include, sexy massage and maybe some eye contact and some erotic breathing together, all this other stuff, right, that you can do that don't include any toys just yet, but help you broaden the way that you think about connecting and pleasing and exploring pleasure with your partner. That has to happen first, because if you introduce a toy and none of the foundational stuff has been set up about addressing the fears, incorporating your full body, removing or decentering the penis in those situations, it can be really intimidating for a lot of guys. And so maybe sometimes that's what's needed. You just need to slap him in the face, so to speak, and say, here, we're just doing this now, and get over the fears, right? Maybe that works for your particular partner. But in my experience, one of the things that I'll get guys to do to begin with is, like I said, decenter their penis, decenter the genitals when it comes to sex with their partner. So they kind of have this light bulb moment of like, shit, sex can be all these different things, can be pleasurable in a variety of different ways. And then it's like, oh, what can we introduce to continue to broaden our horizons, to continue to expand from here? But it has to have that light bulb moment of, we can expand, we can broaden, we can kind of diversify and experiment here, and take the pressure away from just being penetration oriented with a penis. So that's my advice, I suppose.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like, you couldn't even say better, like, decentralize the penis or in sex. Like, it's not about penetration 100%. There is so much more when you open your mind and you are able to see different perspectives. You would be like, oh, I can have an orgasm without having penetration. And you will discover an amazing layers that you have never thought they were there.
Is there also toys for penises as well? There's so many amazing toys out there for men, and I advocate for guys to use toys as well when they're either by themselves during self-pleasuring or when they're with a partner. And that can be a whole another broadening of horizons with regards to experiences of pleasure. So I'm also not just saying only use toys for women, there are toys for men as well, which are really fantastic.
Well, we are also coming to the end. I am so, this conversation went too fast. So, yeah, literally. So, guys, I hope you enjoy. But before we go, I want you to maybe give a little short, quick advice for guys that might feel like, I'm single and I've been masturbating for years and I don't know how to approach girls because my brain knows I'm going to ejaculate quickly, or I know I'm not performing well. How can I solve this issue getting into the dating life?
Yeah, one of my biggest pieces of advice, and it's a mindset shift, is how can you have what I'll call a no big deal approach to these sexual issues? So if you ejaculate quicker than you would like to, who cares, right? You've still got a mouth, you've still got a tongue, you've still got fingers, possibly you got toys. If you wait for 15 minutes, usually you can go for round 2. Typically you last a little bit longer, right? So what are you making it mean about these sexual difficulties that you're having? Say you struggle to get an erection or struggle to maintain an erection. How can you hold that frame of reference, that mentality of that's not a big deal. I'm still here. I still want to, explore pleasure with you. I still got fingers. I still got a mouth. I still got toes. I still got, the whole rest of my body. We got toys. How can I let go of the weight of that particular issue, right? And obviously that's easier said than done. It takes a little bit of practice, but that mindset shift of it doesn't matter. It's not going to ruin my opportunity to explore pleasure with you, right? If you can hold that frame of reference and then also do work on it on the side, obviously there's an issue that you're trying to work on. So also do that work. But the way that shows up for women, in my experience, is oh, okay, sure, he's able to acknowledge, he's honest that this is a thing that can kind of happen. He's not making it a big deal. Cool. I don't need to worry too much about it. Oh, he's also interested in pleasure in other ways. Cool. That makes me feel a bit more excited and there's an opportunity there. And usually it's received very well. And then a lot of the times when the issue is anxiety related, the fact that you're able to kind of hold that hey, it's not a big deal. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I still want to explore this with you. Sometimes this happens. That's all right. I'm working on it, with someone else. That slowing down, that relaxation and that focus on pleasure, again, if it's a performance anxiety related issue, is typically the things that will help you, right? It'll help you get that erection. It'll help you slow down and relax and last a little bit longer. So if you can shift the mindset of that's no big deal. No worries. This is something that sometimes happens. I'm working on it, but it's not going to help. It's not going to stop us from exploring pleasure. I've got some other stuff we can do. awesome. That is a much more comfortable mindset to be in for both yourself and also for your partner that you're choosing to be sexual with. But like I said, it's easier said than done. Takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of confidence building. That hugely is one of the big pieces of advice that I give to guys.
Yeah, and actually you took the word from my mouth, because I was about to say, for the women point of view, actually we do not care when guys are able to be honest and say, like, maybe mention it before that, because if you got someone very excited, say, I might come like a little bit quickly, or I might not last longer, but I have some other skills I can do for you. And that will be compensate. And I think that is the best way and mindset to take and to do as well.
Yes.
I wanted to say thank you so much for being here today, and appreciated you having the conversation with me. And guys, thank you for watching us, and I hope you see you in the next episode. Bye. And don't forget to subscribe. See ya.